This is the Master FTO tutorial, and I've been very proactive in getting this out. And I would first want to go over the general idea of the method and the pieces of a Master FTO. So the Master FTO is the 4-layer counterpart to a normal FTO. And unlike this FTO, which doesn't have any centers, will fix pieces, this has a center. But they're not fixed centers because they can move around. And like you can get white up beside yellow. So you have to account for those. I'm going to be calling those dots throughout this tutorial just because they're one piece and it's easier than centers because I'm going to be referring to this as a center. And each edge is built up of 4 pieces. You have outer wings and inner wings. And an important note about those is these 2 pieces will always be preserved on the right slice, and these 2 pieces will always be preserved on the left slice. But this piece, if I move it to the left slice, these 2 are no longer preserved. And then you have your corners, just like on an FTO, and you have your triangles like on an FTO. So everything else is like an FTO, except it's 4 layers. So corners, triangles, outer wings, inner wings, dot. The goal for the Master FTO with this method is to get it to your last 4 triples, like on an FTO, where you just have to solve your last bottom triple, and then your last 3 triples. However method you use, being TCP, 2-look TCP, beginners, whatever you use. The first step is going to be to solve your first block, which is going to be your first center and your first 2 triples, like you would on an FTO. Except you'll actually have to form these 3 edges to make the center. This step is comparable to this step of Yao, where you're making your cross after making your first 3 edges, by making the edges and then making the cross. I'll put the Scramble on screen that I'm going to use for this tutorial. So the first step is to put your white and yellow dots opposite of each other. This can always be done in a single move or no moves. It's either going to always already be solved or you just have to do 1 move. So you want to find your white dot and wherever your yellow dot is. Mine are both here. And the face, you should be able to figure out which face is opposite of your white dot. And you just want to do a wide move to put your yellow dot there, without moving both dots. Like, you can't do it like that, because that moves this dot and this dot. You can do that. Next, you're going to start pairing your edges, your white edges. And this goes back into where these 2 pieces will be preserved, and these 2 will be preserved on the left slice, and these 2 on the right. So this right here, this bar is formed. And it is, I can't preserve it on the left or the right. But if I do a U move, it's now preserved. And I want to look for the other white purple outer wing. That's here, so I can just do a B move to bring it up. And these 2 pieces are already paired, so I don't have to worry about doing that. So I can just do an R wide, and this edge is paired. And I can just put it in place with the B. And then you want to look for your next one. I have this white red outer wing, and it's already paired to this inner wing. So I'll look for the other white red outer wing. And that's right here. So I can just bring that up with an F. And if you see, this is not preservable. I cannot pair them like this. So I can just do F, R wide, and then it forms it. And then instead of just preserving it like that, you can instead look for one of your triangles, make the bar, and then make your trapezoid like you would in FTO. It's better to do it this way because it just saves time. And then this is already paired, but I'm going to show you what to do if it wasn't paired. So this one, you could pair with a white or a blue. I could do a white with this one like that. Or I could do a blue with this one or this one. I'll show for this one. You would rotate down and do R wide, U prime, R wide. And then you want to make sure you keep these preserved as well. So like don't do any B moves or anything, like no U wides. So then you want to look for your next white, blue outer wing while preserving this one. So do a U to preserve that in the L slice. Then here's the wing, and here's the other wing. Here's the inner wing, here's the outer wing. So I can do an F and a U prime to pair, set them up to pair. R prime, U, R prime, or R wide prime. And that pairs this. And then you want to, again, just pair the whole bar. So there's these two triangles, so I can go B, R prime, F prime, R prime, D prime. And that forms your center. And then I would assume you know how to do your first two triples, so I'm not going to really explain that. So that's the first step. Now we're going to do the same thing for pairing edges, but to make one of our extended centers, either being green, gray, or orange. This step is comparable to solving your first center on an FTO, or your first two centers on, well, your first two E centers on 4x4 with Yao. So I'll start with gray, just because I see the best solution for gray. You want to look for bars that are already formed. This bar is formed, just not in its correct slice. So it's an L slice bar, so you can just put it in the L slice. And then you can do an R3 wide to find new pieces. That's what I tend to do. And this bar is here. You can do a U, R3 wide prime, R wide, and that pairs that. And then we're going to preserve everything in this slice right here. For some reason I can't, the R slice. So you're going to do a U, and that's in the R slice now. And then you can just do R. You can do anything freely. Just anytime it comes to the top, just do an extra R move before you do anything. So now I'm gonna do this gray and blue edge. So I have two left bars made, where if I was to put them both in the left, they would both stay preserved. So now I need to make one of them into a right bar. So I'll step back up to what it was. Just how it was. I see I have this edge here, this piece of an edge, and these here. So I'll do a U to put that there. And then a R3 wide, U prime, R3 wide prime. And that puts that one that was here to here. And I can just do a R wide, U prime, R wide prime, R3 wide, and that pairs this. And then do a U prime, and then an R prime. And then for the last one, you just gotta, again, account for this, that any R wides you do, you want to do an R wide after. So it's good to get into the habit of being able to do slices. So here, we have this left bar paired. I'm not gonna just immediately go put it in the left, because I don't really need to. And then I have this to make the right bar. So I'm gonna do a slice, and then I'm gonna do a U, a R3 wide, and R wide, U prime, R wide prime, and that makes that. An R3 wide U to preserve. And then if you know your FTO color scheme, you should be able to figure this part out, but you want to put your gray dot in between your blue and red dots. That's how I remember this, at least. So here's the gray dot, here's the blue and red dots, so you can just do R wide prime, and that's correct. And then you can just solve your gray center how you would an FTO normally. And that's your first extended center. And this got like that during that, which is funny. But anyway, so that's your first extended center. Now we're on to our last two extended centers, which is equivalent to the last two center step of FTO or the last two E centers of 4x4 on Yao. So there's two ways you can go about this, and it's broken up into a few steps. You can just solve all the outer wings and then do commutators, which is what, before we developed this method, was the preferred way. But now, you want to solve this bar right here, this piece, this inner wing, this outer wing, this triangle, this outer wing, and this inner wing. And you will then solve this edge minus this specific inner wing. And then you will there's two ways to recognize the next step. It's called the roux step because you use slice moves to solve this bar. And then you do more roux steps to solve these individual midges, these individual inner wings. So first I want to solve this bar here. So the next center after gray, at least on the standard color scheme, is orange. So first I want to solve these three pieces. So you got to figure out which edge goes there. If I were to put this edge here, it would be here, and it can never be here. So you have to look at this edge, and eventually you need to get better at being able to just recognize which one it is without really having to check. But when you're just starting out, it's okay to check. And you see this triangle here, so you can just do R, U, R prime to pair them. But let's just pretend that this right here is not formed. So it's like this. What you could then do in this situation is, let's say you see this, you have these two paired, this triangle and this outer wing, and you have this inner wing here. You could just do U prime, R wide, U, and then R wide prime, and that makes that. And just bring that to the bottom. And then look which one will go here. This one is going to go there. And it's also already paired with that, but I'm going to then pretend that it's not. So let's just say you have it here. You could do this wing, you could do a U, R wide, U, R wide prime. Or let's say it's in the top, for example, and not paired with anything. This is in the bottom, this is in the back, and this is here. Since this is a one that we preserved in the left slice, this R slice will not move it. So you can do R wide, U prime, R wide prime. And then to form this, you can just do R3, U prime, R3 prime, U prime, R3, R prime, U, R, U, R3 prime. There is a tree that's currently being worked on for this step that would solve it from any case more efficiently, but until that's finished, this is the best way to do it. And the next step is to solve these pieces. You are specifically solving these two outer wings and this inner wing. There is a tree for this. I'm not going to go over every single case because it is on the master FTO doc, or it should be up by the time this tutorial is out, if it's not already on there. But I'll go over this specific case. So the best way to do this intuitively is to get this specific outer wing and this inner wing to this spot. So like this one can go there, like that. Then you want to pair the other one up here. This doesn't have to be there. Like, let me move that real quick actually. So, never mind, I did not move it. Anyway, so in this scenario, for example, all you have to do to solve this is R wide, U prime, R wide prime. And that solves that. Now this step, I may start to ramble a bit because it's not complicated per se, but it's kind of unique in a way. There's two ways to do this. You could put this wing into its spot, which naturally happens, so I'm going to take it out because I want to teach the other way after. But you would put that there, and then you would have one of 5 cases. This case, this edge is here, and you will cycle this to here, this to here, and this to here by going. And then that puts this bar here, which then allows you to do the roux step. There is a tree for this. The tree is done. I am not going to go over all these cases because this tree is in the doc. But what it does is it goes and it solves this whole bar like that. And you would have to solve that. Now let's say, for example, that doesn't happen for you. That this isn't in place. You could just place it. and then recognize your case, which is an option. That's what I still do because this other recognition method takes some time to learn. Or you could learn the case for where these two are. So this one is these two. This is the connected case where they are together. And then you would want to look at specific pieces. Either these two match, or these two and these two match each other. And these two don't match, but these two match and these two match. Which means that you have case 3 for the together set, which is just a FL, UR, UB, UL2 swap, which you would just do U prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R, U prime, R prime, U, R, U prime, R prime. And then that sets up that bar. I will make a video to go with this, going over each individual case. However, just to keep this tutorial intuitive and short enough, I'm not going to do that here. Now, you just finish off your center by solving this triangle, or whatever triangles are not solved, which really should only be that one, and sometimes this one. Now, you're on the last step before making it just your last 4 triples. This is where you have this dot, this dot, this dot, this dot, or this dot. These dots can all be unsolved. All these dots should all be solved, but these 5 could be, any of these 5 could be unsolved. You'll never have all 5 unsolved, but you will have 3 or 4 unsolved. And in this case, I have 3 of them unsolved. And I'm going to cycle them this way. And the alg for that is just and then it's now a last 4 triples case. So now you can literally just do whatever last 4 triples you want to do, and you will solve your master FTO. This method was primarily developed by Victor Mateus and He did most of the alg generating, however, and I've made the doc and this tutorial. And we came up with the idea basing it off of YAL because the method that we were using before was very ineffective. It was just Redux, and Redux was terrible because after you paired everything up, you still had to solve an entire FTO, which due to the hardware also not being perfect, like speed cube material perfect, it wasn't really viable. However, to talk about the hardware for a moment, Nathan Shackleben is the person who made these, and he 3D printed them, and he is currently working on more. I'm not sure when for sure he'll be selling them, but you can reach out to him in the FTO Discord server, which I will link in the description. I'll also link the Master FTO doc in the description, along with the extra video going over all of those last 2 center cases. But this is the main Master FTO video, and I hope it helps out. And if it doesn't, then comment what doesn't really make sense, and I'll either reach out to you in the Master FTO Discord server or make another video about this. But this is pretty much it. Just Master FTO, fun puzzle. Oh, and Ben Shooter made the Scrambler, which I'll also link in the description. But it's also pinned in the Master FTO thread in the FTO fan club Discord server. So yes, feel free to join that. Feel free to comment anything. I'll 100% be releasing more Master FTO mistake videos as the method continues to develop. Victor is still working on more advanced ideas, and we're still bouncing around different ideas for how that would work. And if we ever get somewhere with that, I will make more information about that. Thank you for watching this, and try to beat my times on Master FTO.